Here's a quick tutorial on how to build a purchase order approval flow. First, I'm going to create a queue, a workflow tool where I can customize every field, state, transition, and action. I can also easily trigger database queries and API calls at any step of the way. I'll give my queue a name and a description. I'll also add an icon so that users can identify what the queue is for. Next, I'll configure the data fields that will be used in the task form people will fill out when they want to request purchase order approval. I'll need PO number, type of purchase, contract ID, amount, vendor, and cost center. Then I'll edit the form containing the data fields I just added. Title, state, assigned to, created at, and updated at fields are automatically generated for each form. For the type of purchase, I'll select dropdown as the type of component and write descriptions to make it easier for the end user to select a pre-approved value. I'll do the same thing for cost center. After finishing up my form, I'll configure the states and call to actions. Depending on the size of your company and what your approval process looks like, you can adjust the states and actions accordingly. In this example, the first state a task enters when a user creates a form is new purchase order. I'll also add the other states for the task to potentially go through: need more info, approved, rejected, and closed. Next, I'll configure the new purchase order state. I want all tasks that enter this state to be assigned to the operations team so they can review them. The two options for actions that an ops team member can take will be to approve the purchase or request for more information. I'll set this primary CTA as approve, and when a user clicks this button, this task will transition to the approved state. If the ops team member requires more info to move the task forward, they can select the CTA needs more info. Next, I'll configure the state called need more info. It'll be pretty similar to what we did before, where I'll add a CTA. In this case, it will be approve, and I'll set that to be primary, and it will transition to the state approved when somebody clicks that button. This time, when someone approves the task, I want to change the assignee to the finance team so that they can then review the purchase order request. With queues, you can also execute any type of function using any data source that you have connected. In this case, I'm just going to update the task when I click the CTA. I'll also add another CTA, rejected, so that the assignee can reject the task and leave a comment as to why the purchase order was not approved. After a purchase order is approved and reviewed by the finance team, we want to close out the task. So we'll add that as the final state and CTA. Now we'll hop over to Spaces and create a form where people can create a new purchase order. When you create a queue, Internal automatically generates queues functions, including create task, update task, and transition. In this case, we're going to be using the purchase order approval create task function so that users can create a new purchase order with this form. And that form will automatically generate inside of the workflow that we just created using queues. Finally, let's create a new purchase order and get it through the approval system. As you can see here, this is the form we configured with the dropdown for type of purchase and dropdown for cost center. This form is using the queues function that we previously generated when we made a queue called purchase order approval create task. So it will create a task that will enter the workflow automatically. Now we can go over to our queue, purchase order approval and take a look at the task we've just created. The task is automatically assigned to the operations team and has two CTAs, approve and need more info. The task then transitions to the approved state and is assigned to the finance team. If the operations team needs more information, they can select that CTA and leave a comment in the queue as to what they need. After creating a queue and using your custom task system, you can get real-time insight on the efficiency of that workflow with Queues Analytics. This dashboard gives you a better understanding of workflow distribution and the progression of each task. I hope you found this tutorial helpful. Thanks for watching.